Welcome back to the Auto Obsessive Garage. Chadwick with you again for another installment of the Auto Experience series. With me is my good friend Frank.
Hi!
And he's letting us drive this spectacular example today of a Pontiac Vibe from the year 2005.
That's right. The Vibe.
So, basically this vehicle was targeted at buyers looking for Pontiac Aztec aesthetics with the heart and soul of a Lotus Elise. How big is that demographic?
I don't know how many of these they actually sold. I still see them though. But yeah, probably not an enormous number of them.
Yeah, no, and just in case you guys are wondering, it's really just a Toyota Matrix XRS at the end of the day. You've got the 6-speed manual, the 1.8 2ZZ engine that revs to infinity, also known as 8,300 RPM.
Yep.
And I think all the horsepower is at 8,000 RPM?
Pretty much, yeah. You have to absolutely wind it to oblivion in order to make some noise and some power, because I think, I don't know exactly where cam change is. It feels like it's like 6,800-ish, and you have to keep it above that, otherwise you're not going particularly fast. Which
is interesting, because I don't think a Pontiac engine, I know it's a Toyota engine, but nothing with a Pontiac badge has ever revved above 6,500 RPM.
Yeah, they build driving excitement, as the old commercials used to say, but I don't think they really made any kind of revving excitement. I can't think of a single Pontiac engine. Well, they had the old GM Quad 4s, right?
That's right.
They put those in a couple of Pontiacs.
Boy,
so maybe
those things had more horsepower than their V6s for like a couple decades after that. I remember that.
Yeah.
True. Respect. Quad 4. The Quad 4 wasn't everything in GM though, right? It was like Pontiac Grand Am's had it. Sure. So if you guys didn't know that we were going to segue into Quad 4 engines, if you did know, congratulations.
Well played.
Guessing that one. But let's get back on track here. So I think the Pontiac Vibe, let's talk about the market for this vehicle.
Yes.
I think this is kind of like the Subaru in a sense, that the Subaru was cheaper than the WRX for a while because of the Saab badge, even though they were identical cars.
Right, yeah, and that's the 92X Saab.
Yep,
and,
especially the Aero with the turbocharged engines.
Badge engineering. GM is really good with their badge engineering.
But you could get those for a steal, right? I remember I bought mine a lot cheaper than the same year WRX just because of that Saab badge, and I feel like the Vibe GT probably falls in that same camp, right? I mean, Pontiac badge, non-existing car company.
Yeah, kind of not a true orphan car because GM's still around, and it's mechanically Toyota, so really doubly not an orphan car. But yeah, as far as people looking for stuff, if you say, I drive a Toyota Matrix, people understand that. If you say you drive a Pontiac Vibe, their eyes go in two different directions. They have no idea what you're talking about. So yeah, I think with that respect, I'm sure these they certainly don't command a premium over the Matrix. That's for certain.
It's tricky too, because Pontiac's GT badging was usually just a trim. Like a body kit, or like, I don't know, you know, like the Grand Am GTs, the Grand Prix GTs had the same engines as the base, they just had a little more flair.
Right.
But this one is a huge difference over the base Vibe.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's enormous, and
that's cool.
That's fine. Those things fall off windshields.
Falling everywhere.
But yeah, no, it's certainly more than a trim level difference. In fact, I think other than, some minor exterior changes, wheels and body color trim and stuff like that, I really don't think there's hardly any trim differences as compared to the base model. It's all drivetrain, really.
So back to the market, what should someone expect to pay for a good, clean-ish Vibe GT today?
Boy, I know
it's weird now, right? The market's kind of crazy.
Yeah, the market's insane, so everything is $10,000 right now. But I think what's tough is that the key there is finding a really clean one, because these were commuters. Nobody bought a Vibe GT and squirreled it away. Right. Like it's a Ford GT or something like that. catching fun stuff here.
Hey, but it's not car parts, it's camera equipment.
Exactly. Yeah, there you go. And so, I would think probably if you can find a decent one for between 6 and 7 with reasonable miles. This one's got not quite 105,000 miles on it, which for a Toyota product, ultimately, Pontiac Toyota product, is really good. 6, 7, 8, I think is probably around there if it's got well optioned. This one's got leather.
And we're being lighthearted too. I mean, this at the end of the day, this is a functional hatchback. Super functional.
Super functional.
Easy to drive.
You get good gas mileage. It's reasonably comfortable. It's bolted together pretty tightly, especially for a GM product.
It can do multiple things. It can haul a lot of crap around from Home Depot. It can make your daily commute, and it can be a fun little back road bomber.
Absolutely. I mean, it really is a jack of all trades, ace of none type of a deal. Where, is it the fastest thing? No. I mean, an 05 GTI would roast this car. you know, or a, you know, a Civic Si of the era.
True.
But it's more practical, it's more reliable. I've gone camping in this car with my 4-year-old. You know, I've daily driven it. You take it on a twisty road and it's still pretty fun. It's super practical with some fun sprinkled in. I think is kind of the overarching theme of this car.
That's what Pontiac should have used as their tagline, I think.
Yeah, that's similar to We Build Driving Excitement, I think.
Very similar.
Yes.
So let's go ahead and test to see if this Pontiac Vibe GT does still have some performance vibes.
Oh, hey now. Hey now. Don't kill my vibe. All right, let's do it.
Kept me up late last night writing that down.
Yeah, you got to maximize your vibe whenever you can.
All right, guys.
A Pontiac? I don't know. Anyways. I'll be here all week.
Hey, let's go ahead. Let's get to the objective test of this vehicle and see if the Vibe GT can throw down some good performance numbers for us.
Let's go. Let's do it.
With the Vibe GT up on the scales, it came in at just under 2,800 pounds, which is actually not that bad considering this is a 4-door hatchback. Front and rear balance for the Pontiac Vibe GT is just where it should be, being a front-wheel drive, front-engine vehicle with 60% of the weight over the front end.
Too.
That felt good.
The Pontiac Vibe GT displayed some newfound vigor once in the canyons, especially after its mediocre acceleration test we experienced earlier. Even on well-worn, all-season treads, the Vibe GT's chassis and suspension still felt very capable through the corners, with tire squealing and protests whenever we pushed it a little too hard. The Vibe GT still has that mid-2000s slow rock-to-rock steering wheel speed, but half the fun is getting to whip that steering wheel back and forth. The 2ZZ GE engine must be kept on boil up here, and the transmission must be shifted near the 8,300 RPM fuel cutoff. You need to do this to keep it in its somewhat narrow power band. But nail this, and you are rewarded with a thrashy sounding little peppy engine and an adequate source of thrust for corner carving. The Vibe GT gets my thumbs up approval for canyon carving applications. On the exterior, the Vibe GT closely resembles its sibling, the Toyota Matrix, but there's certainly a pinch of Pontiac fuel for the soul sculpted in. The biggest improvement to the exterior on this example is the premium monotone appearance package, which keeps your Vibe from that gray plastic trim curse. Add in an alarmingly cheap price of only $325, as evidenced on this original window sticker, it is quite the steal. The largest Pontiac attributes that distinguish the Vibe from the Matrix are certainly Pontiac's corporate grille design and these saw blade wheels. In all honesty, I miss Pontiac and all the excitement they brought to GM. The Vibe GT places functional use, space as its primary design objective in the interior. Instrumentation is clear, Headroom is plentiful, both front and rear, and the hatch opens up wide to consume all the junk that may be too much for your average trunk. The seats are quite nice in both comfort and bolstering sectors, and I just have to call out the quality of this particular Vibe's leather seating. At just over 100,000 miles, the previous owner maintained seat covers for the entire life of the car, which has preserved these leather seating surfaces near perfectly. I must also award some style points to the asymmetric portions of the interior. The chrome gauge bezels are inventive, as is the angled tombstone that houses the navigation. It can't be all business in here. The 2ZZ GE 1.8 liter VVTL-I 4-cylinder engine, I know that's a lot of numeric and alphabetic characters to take in at one time, is the reason you opt for the Vibe GT or the Matrix XRS. Originally rated at 180 horsepower, but later corrected down to around 170 horsepower by the SAE, this is the power plant packing the most pep for your Pontiac. Tried to get as many P's in as I could. It freely revs to 8,300 RPM, giving the Vibe GT an entirely new personality compared to the other trim levels. Variants of this engine can also be had in the aforementioned Matrix Corolla XRS, the Celica GTS, and the Lotus Elise. It's also a very cool looking engine, with its aluminum intake manifold runners proudly on display. The VVT crossover doesn't occur until about 6,750 RPM, so the power band of the engine is functionally very brief. Performance below this narrowly defined sweet spot is less than admirable. But when driven as intended, and let's be honest and equate as intended to the bouncing off red line with every shift, the power plant in this Vibe GT is an absolute blast. Drivetrain is the area of the Vibe GT review that I was most surprised by. Just about everyone's anticipating the engine being a joy to rev out, but I was completely floored by how well the 6-speed manual made it up to it. Shift throws were crisp and smooth. The transmission also couldn't be upset in the least with revving all the shifts to redline. All in a day's work, it would lazily mumble. Put me on record as saying the Vibe GT gearbox deserves as much acclaim as its wonderful engine does. Is the Pontiac Vibe GT an under-the-radar, kinda unnoticed hot hatch in today's marketplace? The Pontiac Vibe GT is certainly accessible and reliable. I also dare to say it is qualified as a hot hatch. Beneath its somewhat dull, pseudo-crossover skin lies a riotous, high-revving power plant paired with a highly capable, smooth-shifting 6-speed manual. Though the Pontiac brand is dead, RIP, it's still really just a rebadged Matrix XRS. So if you're shopping for one of those, give the Vibe GT a cursory glance. It may save you a little cash in the end. The Vibe Matrix Duo are near perfect functional hatches with high reliability and a wonderful return on driving enjoyment, especially for their current prices in this wild market. You can rev the ever-loving life out of them, and they still barely risk putting you over the speed limit. Truth be told, I don't believe the Vibe GT is overlooked as much as it is a simply unknown car. I don't think a lot of people know about the Vibe GT. So I'd say to everyone out there, if you're into it, go ahead and shop the Vibe GT. Its fun versus price value truly makes it a hidden hot hatch gem.